Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this video is on .NET 7 Razor Pages CRUD sample with one-to-many relationship table structure using EF code. So what is Razor Pages? Razor Pages is a simplified web model. Okay, it is one of the technology in .NET application. Okay, server-side applications. Compared with MVC template, Razor Pages won't have a controller. Okay, it is almost like a MVC architecture only, Razor Pages, but it won't contain controller. Okay, which means Razor Pages is a combination of views and models. Views are nothing but the CSHTML. Okay, the route will be configured within the Razor Pages. Okay, since there is no controller, right? So in the view page only route can be configured. Okay, and basically our Razor page composed of two files. One is C .chhtml.cs that is called model. Only .cshtml that is called view. Okay, these two files combinedly make a Razor page. Okay, so in this demo we are going to implement a sample CRUD example by making relation between two tables with one to many. Okay. So here are two sample scripts for creating two tables, one parent table and one child table. If you observe here, employee table, right? So this is the parent table, okay? And here another table that is employee addresses, which is a child table. So now our relation will be one to many. That means one employee can have multiple addresses in the employee addresses table. Okay, here if you see employee ID, this is nothing but the ID of our employee table. So here we are using it as a foreign key in the employee address table. Okay, so here in these tables we are going to have one employee with multiple addresses. Okay, I have created the tables and I have inserted one sample data also. If you observe here on left hand side we have employee table and right hand side we have employee addresses table. Here I have inserted one employee record and in the employee address table you can see multiple records, but the employee ID is equal to the ID in our employee ID employee table. Okay. So this from this we can understand here these two tables have one to many relationships. Okay, to create a Razor page application, best choice is to use the Visual Studio 2022. Okay, which is a rich IDE for developing the .NET applications. Okay, another approach is you can use the .NET CLI command for creating the projects. Here, due to my system not supporting Visual Studio 2022, I am using the CLI. But if you have an option to install Visual Studio 2022, go for it. Okay. So here is the command for creating the Razor page application using .NET CLI. Okay. Command is like .NET space new space and here is template name. Okay. Here I want to create the Razor pages, right? I have to give the template name like web app. Okay. And -o that means create an output directory for my file. Okay, and name of your project. So let's run the command. And here our project got successfully created. Since I am using CLI for creating the application, right? For development, I'm going to use the Visual Studio code editor. Okay, not Visual Studio 2022. It is a code editor. Okay, so let's open my project in the Visual Studio code editor. Okay, here is our Razor page application. If you go to .cs project file, you can see the framework, target framework, which is .NET 7. Okay, so first let's explore the existing files. Okay, so first thing we can see here is program.cs file. Go to program.cs file. Okay, here only one service is registered. That service is nothing but the Razor Pages service. And there are quite few middlewares in this program.cs file configured. So if you observe, there is a if condition and some middlewares. So these middlewares only execute here. not operation is added, prefixed here. That means these middleware should be executed only not in development environment. That means not local, either production or testing environment. Okay. So here exception handler middleware is registered and a page is configured to it. Okay. And here use HSTC. Yes. Okay. Okay. So these middleware will send an header to the client. Client nothing but the browsers. Okay. That request must be secured. Means only HTTP's request only should send to the server. For that purpose, this middleware can be used. And here there is one more middleware like HTTPS redirection to redirect a non-HTTP into HTTPS URL. Okay. And here another middleware like use static files. So if you have any static files like JS, CSS, or images, those kind of static files will directly return from here. Okay, it won't execute further steps. So the use static file middleware help to deliver the static files and use routing that enables the .NET Core endpoint routing and authorization middleware and map Razor Pages routing. So this is going to map our Razor Pages routing, okay, to load the respective Razor page based on the route. Okay, that is about program.cs. And here app settings.development.json and app settings.json files are there. So here we can configure any app settings that we need. For local development, I will configure my connection string in this app settings.development.json file. And here you can see folder like www root folder that contains CSS, JSS files. So all the static files in our application must be added into this www root folder so that in the program.cs file we have configured use static files, right? So this middleware will fetches the static files inside of the www root folder and delivers them. Okay. And next, this is the pages folder. Here we contain all the Razor pages. I have mentioned, right? .cs and CSHTML file combinedly makes a Razor page, right? Here you can see error Razor page, okay, and index Razor page, privacy Razor page, okay. And here there are several other files like view start, just like MVC. It's going to specify the layout name, okay, and view import all global namespaces can be imported in this file. And inside of the shared folder, we have layout Razor page, okay. Layout Razor page is nothing but the master page that will contains the header and footer, okay. And here there will be a rendered body. So here in this main element we have rendered body tag, right? In this place our requested Razor page will be rendered. If you request error page, that page gets rendered here. Okay. So that's all about the existing Razor page structure. Okay. Since we have created our tables, right? So to communicate with our tables from our application, we have to install entity framework. Okay, entity framework is a ORM framework that can make our application interact with the database. Okay, so to set up the entity framework and database context into our application, we need to install few NuGet packages. Okay, let's install them. First thing, such like EF Core NuGet, and you can see the top link, right? Click on it. Okay, if you are Visual Studio user, you have a rich UI interface where you can search the package manager. There will be a package manager UI interface. So from there you can install, or you can open the terminal instead of the Visual Studio 2022 and install this package manager command. But we are using CLR8. I am going to copy the command from here. Okay, copy the command, open the terminal, paste our command, and install the Microsoft.NT Framework Core NuGet package. Okay, after installing package, you can check its reference in the .cs project. Okay, you go to .cs project, see here. Our package got added here, reference. Okay, so now we have installed NT Framework Core package. And we are dealing with SQL server, right? SQL database. Okay. For that we have to install one more dependent package of NT Framework core for SQL Server. Okay, search like EF core SQL NuGet, and you can see a link like Microsoft.ntframeworkcore.sql server. Click on it. Okay, copy the command, open the terminal, paste our command. Okay, Microsoft.ntframework.sql server package, install it. Okay, I have successfully installed. So using this NT framework, how can we interact with our database means with the classes, with the help of creating POCO classes, we interact with our SQL database. Okay, so we have to create a class like database context. So this database context class will act as a database in our C# code. Okay, it is like a replica of our database, and we have to create classes for each individual table in our SQL database. Okay, we have employee and employee addresses tables right here. We have to create two POCO classes in our application, like employee class and employee addresses class. And these classes must be registered in our database context class. Then database context can interact with our SQL server very easily. Okay. So first let's create the table classes like employee and employee addresses class. Okay. So first thing, let's create a folder like data. Inside of data folder, let's create one more folder like entities. Okay. So inside of entities, let me create my first table class, that is employee class. Okay. Okay. Here is our employee class. Now what we have to do means we have to add all the table columns as a properties inside of this class. Okay. So let me copy things. Okay, let's add it here. Okay, let create them as properties. Okay, id next public string, a question mark that represent nullable column. Okay, first name, public string, last name, public string, job role. Okay, that is my employee class. Now let's create one more class, that is our employee addresses. Okay, so let me copy the table name. Okay, these names must match with our table. Okay, dot c. Okay, here is our employee addresses class. So let's copy the properties. Okay, and now these columns must be added as a properties here. Okay, int id. Okay, and public string address type. Public string city. Public string country. Okay, and public int employee id. So here are our table classes, employee and employee addresses. So now we have to maintain relationship means we have to create the navigation properties inside of our table classes. We have one to many relationship, right? Here employee will have n number of addresses. Okay. So in the employee table, I have to create a navigation property like it should be a collection of addresses. I have employee addresses must be collection of addresses, right? So I will create a list of employees. Okay, so this is not a table column, this collection, but this is a navigation property that represents the relation between these classes. Same way, employee address, one employee record will have one one employee address will represent to one employee only, right? One record. So here it will be a single object, single employee, one to many relationship. Okay. We haven't defined the relationship directly. We will explicitly explain the relationship like one to many. That will be done inside of the DB context. Okay, we haven't created DB context yet, right? Once we create, we can add our one to many relationship. Okay, now these properties are called the child table or parent table properties we have used here are called navigation properties. Okay, now let's create the database context. Okay, so inside of the data folder, I will create a class like my old DB. Since my database name is my old, so I'm going to create the database context like my old db.context.ca. Okay. Okay, here is our my old DB context class. Currently it is plain class only. To make it DB context class, it must inherit DB context. Okay. That loads from the NT framework core library. Import the namespace. Okay. Now here let's add the constructor. Okay, to this constructor, I have to pass the DB context options. Okay, and type will be our context class only and options to base. These options are nothing but type of provider, connection string, all those things will be injected here. So once we register this DB context in the program.cs file, we know what is that registration. Okay, and those must be passed to actual DB context. Okay, from base. So I have already mentioned to interact with our SQL tables, all the table classes must be registered inside of our DB context class. So let's register our employee class and employee addresses class here. Okay, public DB set employee. Okay, register them as a DB set properties, our table classes. Okay, same way public addresses also. Now context class can interact with the tables that are registered here. Okay. Now to our DB context, we have to specify our one-to-many relationship, right? So for that, let me override the on model creating method. Okay, protected to override void on model creating. Okay, and it should contains input parameter like model builder. Okay. Now here I can specify the relationship between my employee and employee addresses using the Fluent API. Whatever code we write here, that is called Fluent API. Okay. So model builder dot I can use dot entity, and to this entity I am going to pass my employee address. Our employee address have foreign key constant everything, right? So I can define it here. Okay. So here I can specify like has one employee. In employee address, we have one employee entity, right? So has one employee and dot with many. This is called one-to-many relationship defining. Okay. Here it will give employee address data. Here it will give employee data. dot employee addresses. See, in the employee addresses has one employee with many addresses in the employee table. Here we are defining the one-to-many relationship, and here we have to specify the foreign key property in our employee addresses. Okay, that is employee ID. Okay, here we have defined the one-to-many relationship. Okay, now I have created my database context. And also, I have added the one-to-many relationship between my parent and the child class as well. Now, let's add the connection string in the app settings.development.json file. Okay, so app settings.development.json file here, add connection string and add property like my old DB connection. And here add your connection string, database connection string. So here I added connection string. It is very easy to define the connection string like key value pair separated with the colon. Okay, first key will be the data source equal to name of your server name. Okay, second key will be the initial catalog, nothing but the database. So you have to pass your database name. Okay, and then integrated security. I'm using Windows authentication here. True. Okay, if you want to use username and password authentication, then you have to create two more key value pairs like username and its value, password, its value. Okay, and some connection timeout to 30 seconds. Okay, that much simple. You have to prepare your connection. Now let's register our DB context in the program.cs file so that it can be used by the DA so that anywhere we can inject our database context. Okay, so go to program.cs file. Okay, always register any service just above this builder.build. Okay, above this line only we have to register any kind of service. Okay, so builder.services.add DB context and here specify our DB context type. So my old DB context. Okay. And import the DB context namespace. And here let's configure the SQL server provider like use SQL server. Okay. Import the namespace that is Microsoft.int framework core. And to this SQL server, we have to pass our connection string. So to get the connection string, I can use builder.configuration.get connection. To this connection string, we have to pass the property name inside of the connection string property. What is the property name? My old DB context. So copy this and pass it. Okay. So whenever our DB context object is created, these options will be injected into the constructor. I have mentioned, right, some configurations we are passing. Those are nothing but these registered configurations like connection string and the provider. Okay, so that's all about creating SQL table with one-to-one, one-to-many relationship, and also implementing that in NT framework using the database context as well. Okay, next we are going to implement. I have already had some sample data in my database, right? First, let me try to implement the read operation. Okay, read means fetching this data from my Razor page and rendering on it Razor page. Okay, I'm going to show how to fetch parent table alone and also including with child table. Both the cases I'm going to show in the read operation. Previously, we have implemented DB context and its configurations, right? Now let's implement a read operation, okay, where we are going to fetch our data from parent and child table as well, okay? So to implement the read operation, let me create new Razor page, okay? So Inside of the pages, I will create a new folder like employee. Okay. Inside of this employee, I want to create a razor page like employee index. Okay. So we know we will have two files, employee index.cs html.cs file, which is a model file, employee index.cs html, which is a view file. We have to create two files. So first let me create the model file. Okay. Employee index.cs html.cs. Okay, here is our model, employee index, and it should inherit the page model that loads from Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC.Razor pages. Okay, first thing, let's inject our DB context into the constructor of our model. Okay, first let me create a read-only variable like my old DB context. Okay, and inherit the namespace and create add the constructor and inject the my old DB context. Okay, here. Okay. In general, Razor Page model supports two kind of methods like on get async, on post async. So these are like lifecycle methods. On get async, get executed for get request. On post async method executes for post method. Okay. Now I am going to create a get async method to load the page. In that method, I am going to call my employee table data. Okay. Okay. So in this page, let me display only my employee table data. Okay. The parent table, only employee data. I'm not going to retrieve the employee addresses. I'm going to read only employee data. Okay. So let's create our method like public async task action result, import the namespace. Okay, on get async. Okay, this is the lifecycle method which gets executed for uh, get requests. Okay, so here let's import the namespace here. Okay, so this method should be either on get or on get async. Okay, if you want to customize this method names, you can do that. But you should do like this on get and your custom name. Okay, but one more thing is if you use your custom name like this, then you have to pass your custom name as a query parameter handler. Okay, that is why never try to customize the names of the Razor Pages methods. If you are absolutely desperate, then you can do. There is an option, just I have shown, right? But the method name must be passed as a query parameter, and query parameter key name will be handler. To that handler, you have to pass your method name. Okay. And now I want to fetch the data from the database. So I can use my old DB context dot. I want to fetch only employees, right? Employee dot to list async. Okay. So this async loads from EF core. Let's import the namespace. Okay. What it will do means it will do select star from employee table. Okay. Since it is async, right? Await. So I want to store this data into some variable and I want to bind it to my UI. So for that, let me create a model variable, okay, public, and its type is employee, right? So employee, since employee folder name is getting conflicted, so I need to give the full namespace, okay, sample data entities dot employee. I will name it like all employees because I am going to display all employees, right? In that case, it should be a collection, this variable. Okay, to this variable, I am going to assign my records from the database. Okay, and finally, we can simply return the page, means render the browser view page. Okay, that is my get method. This will be rendered for get request and page will be loaded. Okay, so I have done with the model. Now I have to work on view. So let's create a view for this. So to employee index.cshtml is my view. Okay, the first thing is I have to specify the route for this Razor page. I can do this in the view. In general, in MVC, we will have a controller, right, where we can define route. So in Razor pages, in the HTML page, we can define the route. So for that, I can use page directive slash. It should be prefixed with slash, whatever route you are going to give. Okay, employee slash index. This is my route name. And here I have to map the model. This is my employee index is my model, right? I have to define it. So here model equal to, okay, I have defined the model. Now what I will do here in this variable, I am storing all the employees data, right? I am going to loop and bind it on the UI. For that, I am going to render a bootstrap table. Okay, first let me add a container, okay, and a row. Inside of it, let me add a bootstrap table. So let's go to bootstrap website. So here is the bootstrap website, right? Let's go to the tables. Okay. Here you can see the tables in the content menu and copy any one of the sample example. I'm going to copy this table. Okay. Copy it, add it here. Now let's add the table rows and columns. Okay. For full example, go to top. Okay. Copy this table header and table body. Okay, so here let's populate the column names. So what are the names of our table? First name, last name, job role, right? So here I will save ID. Okay, first name, last name, job role. Okay, those are my static columns. Now I have to loop the table rows. So for that I can remove the additional dummy table rows. Okay, I can keep one table row. Now I have to loop it. Okay, every record one row will be added. For that I can use rather syntax of for each loop. So at the rate for each. Okay, here I can retrieve the all employees like model. Okay, so model is nothing but our employee index class. Dot whatever the properties we have inside of it, we can access it. So all employees. Okay, EMP. So let's copy this entire table row inside of the for each. Okay, and let's bind the data. So I can use at the rate to dynamically bind the data emp.id. Okay, at the rate emp dot first name dot last name emp dot job role. Okay, that's it. Let's test by accessing our page. Okay, let's run the application. So here you can see my sample Razor page is running. Okay, and let's navigate to my employee Razor page. We know the route, right? So copy that route. Okay, and try to access it. See, I'm able to see the record now. We are getting only employee table. To confirm that we are not calling the child table, we can see the uh, query that was generated by our EF core. So here calling tool is async, right? On get async. So if you open the terminal, you can see the logs of our EF core, and here you can see select columns here, ID, first name, job name, last name, but there is no child table connection. That means only employee table got invoked. Okay. Next, what we are going to do here, I am going to add one more column here, and there I am going to add a link like details. So on clicking that details, we are going to details place. In that case, I am going to call both parent and child table. Okay, here parent is employee, right? Employee and its addresses also I am going to display on the details page. Okay, so let's create new pages in the employee folder like employee details, employee details dot cs html dot cs means that is my model. Here is our employee page model. Okay, first let's inject the my old DB context here as well. So let me copy paste from the index page. Okay, and add it in my details page and change the constructor name. Okay, and import our my old DB context namespace. Okay, we are done with the injecting the my old DB context. And let's create a variable to hold our data that we are going to fetch from the database. So for that, what I will do, I will create a variable, model variable like so dot seven razor cut sample data dot entities dot employee. Okay, employee details. Okay, this is my property name I am going to hold. Okay, now we know we have to create on get async method, right? So public, okay, public async task I action result, okay, on get async method. Okay, import the I action result, and our get async method should contain a query parameter like ID because we have to filter the employee from the employee table, right? So I am going to have a query parameter like ID here. Okay, now let's frame the NT framework core in such a way that along with the particular employee, all its tail table records means addresses collection must be retrieved. Okay, so for that I can write a query like await my old DB context dot employee dot where, apply the where condition to pick the specific employee. Okay, and then I have to include, right? Include. Okay, include loads from NT framework. Sorry, include. Okay, so what this include will do means import the NT framework namespace. Okay, and here we have to specify the navigation property. We know the navigation property employee addresses, right? Employee, and I can call tool is testing. Okay, so what this include will do means it will do a join with employee table, make a join with employee address table. Okay, and finally filters the by employee ID. That means we are going to get both employee and the employee addresses records. Okay, so include. You have to import the NT framework core namespace to use this method. Okay, include method. And we have to assign it to the employee details variable. Okay. So it is not two list here. Single employee, right? Employee has multiple collection employee addresses. So here we have to use first or default. Okay, and finally return the page. So here first or default is sync. And here employee details and our model names are conflicting. So let me change the employee details to employee data. Okay, this variable name. First, let's create the HTML file. Okay, so employee details, copy this and create a new file. Okay, first thing is I have to define the route for my employee details page. Okay, page and employee slash details. Query parameter automatically can be read by the on get async. We no need to specify any placeholder here. Okay, and we need to map the model and rather cut sample pages employee details. Okay, let's add a container row and column. Okay, here call MD6. Okay, offset MD3. I want to display my content in center 6 columns of the page, and I want to leave 3 columns on each side of the page. Okay, here let me add a bootstrap card to display my data. So here go for cards. Here is the cards. Okay, and here I can copy these cards, add it here, and let me remove the width of the card. And I don't have any image tag. Let me remove it. And here title. So I want to render my employee data here. I want to render my employee name here. Okay. So name will be so at the rate model dot employee data dot first name at the rate model dot employee data dot last name. Okay. So let me remove the text and let me add one more card title here for job role. Okay. So let me add H6 and add this card title. Okay. And job role. And here let me bind it like model dot employee data dot job role. And now we have employee addresses as a collection, right? We have to loop it. Okay. So for that, what I can do here, remove this. Here, let me add a for each. Okay. Here I am going to loop the model dot employee data dot employee addresses. And here it will be a address. Okay. And here let me add a one more card, okay, to display the address. So I will take a card with header. Let me take this. Okay. In the card header, let me render the type of address. So address at the rate address dot address type and normal string. Okay, type of address like home or office address heading I want to display. And here no title, no need anything in the remove everything. And here let's simply display city and country. Okay, address dot city and country address dot country. Okay, that's it. Now I can access my details page and I can display the both employee and employee addresses. Okay, so one to many relationship we are accessing here using the join query. So join can be done with the include method of the EF core. Okay, now one more thing we have to do in the index page. Let me add a one more column like actions. So index.html. Here let me create one more column actions. And here one more TD. And inside of this TD, I want to display a anchor tag. Okay, and details. Okay, I have to map the route of my employee details. To do that, I can use the tag helpers. So ASP hyphen page. So here we have to specify the name of the page. Okay, so here you can see select the name of the page. So my page I want to select is details. Sorry, details page. No need to specify .chhtml. Simple name of the page. On rendering, what it will do means it will fetch the route inside of this page. Details page what we have employee slash details page that will be rendered here. But we have a query parameter, right? To add query parameter, we can use another decorator like ASP route hyphen. Here we have to specify the name of our query parameter. So what is the name of our query parameter? ID. So copy this, okay, and add it here. And it should be dynamic value. We know that employee ID. Okay, that's it. Let's test it. And here you can see the details link. And if you inspect element, you can see href is added. Okay, and here route is not rendered dynamically in the as a query parameter. Okay, here small correction. It is route TE. Okay, let's check again. Now you can see ID as a query parameter dynamically added. Now if I click on this link, I will navigate to my details page. See, employee name, employee role, and here you can see addresses, home address and office address. Right? That means I am able to retrieve both employee and its child table. One to many relationship table are accessed here. If I check how the query is generated, okay, select star, okay, and it is joined with employee address table. Okay, you can see here join query. That's all about how to read the parent and child table which are in one to many relationship. Next, we are going to implement the create operation. With single create operation, we are going to insert into both the parent and the child tables. Okay. Previously, we have implemented read operation, right? Now we are going to implement the create operation. Okay. So using this create operation with single create, we can add new records parallelly into employee table as well as employee addresses table. Okay. So first let's create new pages for our create form. Okay. In the employee folder, let me create new razor page like first let me create the model. Okay. Employee create.cs html.cs. Okay, here is our employee create model. So as a first step, let's add the on get async. Okay, so let me add the on get async method. Okay, so in this method, there is nothing we have to add as a logic because just we want to display the form, create form. Okay, so I can simply return page method. Okay, now, okay, now let's create the HTML file, employee create.cs HTML file, view file. Okay, first let's define the route for this page using page directive. Okay, slash employee slash create. This is my route. Okay, and next define the model. Okay, that is our model. Now here let's try to add a form where user can enter the employee details as well as employee addresses. Okay, so first let me define the container, bootstrap container, and a row and a column, and I want to display the form with 6 column size form, and I want to leave 3 columns on each side so that my form gets centered. Okay, offset MD3. Here, let's try to add the form. So form and form method should contain method like post form submit. Okay. So now let me add a legend tag to display some form heading like add a employee. Okay, now let's add some fields. Okay. So what fields we have? We will check our employee and employee addresses classes. So these properties need to be configured as a fields in our form. Okay, so let's go to Bootstrap website. So here go to forms. Here you can see the forms. Okay, and in the overview, let me take this one div with input element. Okay, so add it here. First, let's configure the employee form. I don't want this additional div. Okay, let me remove it. And here is the field. In general, my most of the fields are text fields only. Okay. So here, employee, what are the fields we need required for employee data? First name, last name, job role. That means 3 text fields. Okay, let's duplicate this div 2 more times. Okay, and change this to text, first name, and assign it as the ID. Sorry, similarly, text last name and text job role. Okay, these are just optional. Just we are mapping label on the text field. Now let's change the labels name, last name, and email address. Sorry, job role. Okay, and on submitting this form data must be captured by our model. So here we have to create a variable to read the form fields. Okay. So let me create a variable of employee type. Okay. Public 7 razor cut sample data entities and employee. Okay. Name it like new employee. Okay. And to read the form data, we cannot use simple normal C# property. For rendering, we can use a simple C# property. Okay, but to read the form data, this property must be decorated with the bind property. Okay, this will add ability to this property to capture the form posted data. Okay, so now I can bind this variable into my form. Okay, to capture the data. So to capture the data, we have to use a tag. Okay, ASP for. Okay, as a tag helper. To this tag helper, we have to map individual properties in this property, new employee property. Okay, so here I can get new employee dot first name. Okay, same way. So these are what I can say, tag helpers. Okay, so new employee dot last name ASP for. Okay, new employee dot job role. Okay, so I mapped my employee form fields. Okay, so this ASP for on rendering, what it will do means it will just render as a name attribute. Okay, with this name will be printed. Okay, so this ASP for tag is mandatory. If you don't use, you have to manually add the name attribute and pass this as a string. Okay, here it is like dynamic mapping, right? This should be passed as a string because on rendering, ASP for render as a name attribute. From that name attribute only form can read the data. Okay, so this ASP for is mandatory thing. So now I have added the employee data. Now I want to add uh, employee addresses also. So for this demo, I am expecting two addresses, something like home and office addresses. Okay, to render the form, what I can do, I can loop it. Okay, I can use for loop, normal for loop. Okay, and less than or equal to 1. I just want two addresses. Okay, so I'm using starting from 0 to 1 for loop. Okay, now here I can add a new row, new class row. Okay, now here what I will do, let me add a sub form heading. Okay, and address. Okay, and what I will do here, I will add the index value. Okay, so what I will do, instead of 1, start from 0. I want like address 1 and address 2. So for that purpose, I am just adding +1 here. Okay. So it will render as address 1 and address 2. Okay. Now here we have to bind the form. So employee addresses, what are the columns are there? Their address type, city, country. Again, three input fields we required, right? So what I will do, I will copy these three fields, okay, and add it here. Okay, and here let me make these dynamic things. Okay, so what I will do, single quotes and at the rate. Okay, and here txt address type. First thing, address type. Okay, and here I want to add the dynamic value. Okay, so I can open braces and I can pass the I value. Okay, so it will render as text address type 1. Okay, so copy this and add it as ID here. Okay, similarly I can do for here. Okay, I will rename the string, just copy it. Okay, and here other fields are like city and country, right? So txt city, okay, txt city, txt country. These are just optional, but it is good to give a ID and the values here. Okay, country. Now we have to bind the ASP for. If you observe employee, it is a straight object because it is parent table, right? It is a straight object. But employee has a navigation property, employee addresses. So here our form also, we are using employee type, right? So it contains navigation property that contains collection of employee addresses. So while reading also, we have to use like collection of addresses only, ASP for. Okay. So what you can do means, since it is a collection, right? Email address and its index. So pass the I dot address type. Okay. Like this you have to do because it will when it will generate render, what will render means name equal to new employee dot employee address braces inside of it is 0 any index. Okay, dot address type, like that it will render. Okay, so copy this, add it here. Okay, add it here also. Okay, so here it will be city, here it will be country. Now finally add the submit button. Okay, button type will be submit. I want to form submit, right? And classes btn primary. Okay, add. So on form post we have to write the post async method, right? Because we want to save it to our database. So let's go to our employee create model and let's work on post async method. So public async task I action, okay, on post async. Okay, and I mentioned that the new employee can read the form data because it is decorated with the bind property. So first let me inject the my DB context into the constructor. Okay, so let me copy that injection code, copy from the details employee details model. Okay, and here add it here and change the constructor name and import our DB context namespace. Okay, now in the post async method, what I can do, it is very simple. Okay, my old DB context dot add dot sorry employee dot add and just pass the our form field, which is new employee form field property. Since it will contain the navigation property of our employee addresses, right? So form also posts the collection of employee addresses. So once you save a new employee address along with the navigation property data, it will first insert the employee record and take that primary key and again insert the collection data, which is nothing but employee addresses data by passing the employee ID as a foreign key here. We have employee ID, right? Employee ID, which is a foreign key, which is nothing but a ID of our employee address. So it will automatically do. I will show the query how it generates as well. Okay. And finally call save async changes. Okay. After successfully creating, I want to redirect back to our index page. So use a method like redirect and simply give the path like index. Okay. So that's it. We are done with our employee create model code. Now in the employee index page, we have to add a button, add button, because we have to navigate back to our form, right? For that we have a navigation, right? We should have a navigation. So let's add the navigation in the employee index page, which is our like a home page for us. Okay, go to HTML on top of this table. Let me add one more row and column D4 offset MD4, and let me add here anchor tag. Okay, like create employee. Okay, and if you want to display this as a button, I can write the button class here. Okay, and now here I need to configure the navigation href. Okay, so to configure navigation href here, I can use a at tag helper, rather page tag helper like ASP, sorry, not action, ASP page. Okay, and to this we have to specify the file name itself directly. Okay, no need to specify the path. By specifying the file name, automatically href will generate it as a path of this page. So pass the file name, no need to give the extension of the file name, remove it, save it. That's it, we can test it now. Okay, here you can see our index page and you can observe the create employee button. As I told, if you inspect this create employee button, see here, href is automatically generated, but in the code, what we did, we just used the tag helper, ASP page tag helper, and just name of the page is passed, but it is rendered as employee slash create. How it is rendered means it will take the route from this page. So what is the route in our employee create.html? Route is slash employee dot create. Same route is added as a href here. So let me click on it and navigate to add form. Okay, here you can see our form is displaying. Okay, and some styles are missing. Job role text field. Let's correct it. Just change these titles also. Okay, here form control is missing. Job role, so copy it. Okay, and I also forgot to change the actual labels. So this will be the address type. Okay, and this will be the city, and this will be the country. Now check our form again. Okay, I'm getting nice form. Okay, now let's add the new employee. Okay, I will add myself as new employee. Okay, home. I will add some city. Okay, India, and office. I will add like okay, India. This is my form. And I also mentioned, right, ASP per tag, how it will render. Let's check here. If you observe, see name attribute, name employee dot first name. So ASP for will render as this. This is the key. Name attribute is the key for form post in the Razor pages. Okay, same way if you observe our addresses, this child object, right? If you see how name will be generated, see new employee addresses index of address type. Okay, index of city. Like this, it should be rendered. If it is not rendered like this, you form data you won't receive at the server end. Okay, so make sure you have rendered the names very good. Okay, Now let's submit the form. I'm posting. So if it is successfully posted, it will redirect back to index page after creating the record. See, I can see new record is added. Top level employee table record is added. But whether now we have a doubt whether our employee address, which is a child, added or not. Okay. For that, I can click on the details. See, home address Bangalore and office address Lucknow. That means along with my employee new record, new employee addresses records also inserted. Okay. It's very simple EF core query, just an add and save changes async method. Nothing we do explicitly for adding the child table records. Okay. And if you observe the generated query, we have to scroll up because we have also get some. Okay. See here, some query, implicit transaction and insert. Okay. This is employee insert. And next to that, you can observe one more insert with employee addresses, and it is automatically inputted our employee ID, which is the primary key of our employee. We are using as a foreign key in our employee addresses. So that represents whenever we insert a new record, first EF core will generate two insert queries, one for employee and one for employee addresses. Employee address is child, right? So first it will insert the parent table, nothing but employee, and it will capture the ID of that employee, and again it will use that ID as a foreign key ID in the employee address table. Okay, so that's about the how to implement the create operation when we have one to many relationship. Okay, next we are going to implement the update operation. So previously we have implemented the create operation. Now let's do update operation. Okay, for that let's create the update operation razor pages. Okay, so inside of the employee folder, let me create a first model file like employee update ch html.cs. Okay, okay, here is our update model. Now let's create the on get async method that contains logic. Okay, we are going to fetch the employee and its related records because we have to populate the edit form right with the record, existing record. So we have to fetch that record from the on get async method. Okay, so let me create a on get async method, public thing. Okay, now we have to read our data from the our DB context, right? So let's first inject the database context into our employee update model. For that, let me copy it from any of our previous model. Okay, so add it here and change the constructor name and update the DB context. Import the DB context namespace. Okay, now I can use DB context for querying my data. Okay, dot employee, and I want to filter single employee record, right? Collection of employee addresses and single employee record I have to fetch. So my action on get async method should contain the input parameter, nothing but the ID of the employee. So I am going to add a input parameter like ID. Okay, this is going to come from the query parameters. Here I can filter it. ID equal to ID And then I want to include employee addresses also. For that, we know we have to use include method. That comes from the NT framework core. And here we have to specify the name of our navigation property, nothing but employee addresses. Okay. And first star default async. And it should be awaited. And this data should be binded to our form, right? So what I have to do, I have to contain a property for binding the form data. And that property also should read the form data. That means that property must be decorated with the bind property. If you recall our create operation, we have created such one property like that. So I'm going to copy same here. Okay. Along with the bind decorator, we should have a employee type property. This will be used for rendering the form data and also reading the form data. So let me change it to employee to update. Okay. And let's assign the data to this variable. Okay. And finally return just a page. Okay. So we are done with our on get async method. So let's bind the data to the form. Okay. And let's create the update form as well. So let's create the update form file, HTML file. Okay. We know initial steps, we have to define the route using page directive, right? So I am going to give the employee slash edit. Okay. And its model, pages model, right? Okay, now what I will do, I am going to copy the HTML content from the employee create.cs HTML because lot of code is similar. Okay, so go to employee create HTML. Okay, and let me copy the entire HTML. Okay, paste it over here. Let's do some modifications inside of it. Okay, first thing is it should be update. Okay, and here employee name, new employee name property is not there in our employee update because we have employee to update variable is available. So let's replace it. Okay, so replace with our employee to update variable. Okay, replace all. Okay, that's good. And this button must be update. Okay, ASP for everything will be good. And here we need to add two more fields. Those are hidden fields. So those fields are nothing but to store the ID value of our record because update is based on our primary key values. So we have to maintain the hidden field values for both employee addresses and employee as well. Okay, here let me create the hidden field so it won't appear on the uh, UI, but it will be in the hidden state. Okay, type hidden. Okay, and I am going to use ASP for data binding. Okay, and ID. Same thing I will do for employee addresses as well. Here we have subform, right? Here, but here we should use like this with indexes. Okay, find it. ID. And if you go to our employee address class, we have foreign key employee ID also. So if you want, you can store it in the hidden field. But what I will say is it is not necessary because already it will be as a child. We are posting it as a child. If you are saving individually, then you have to maintain it. But we are updating along with our parent, right? In that case, automatically employee ID gets populated. Where in the case if you want to update only child, in that case, okay, you have to use employee ID also in the hidden field. Okay? Here also you can use hidden field. There is nothing wrong in it. Employee ID, which is a foreign key. So I think that's all about the HTML changes. Only thing major changes, we are adding the ID values in the hidden field so that we can update appropriately. Next, we have to now create the on post async because we are going to read the form data in on post async method, right? So let me create on post async. Just like create updating also very simple for parent and child tables. Okay, on post async. Here I no need any input query parameters. What I will do, I am going to use my old DB context employee dot update. So this method going to update entire object whatever we pass into it. Okay. And next simply call save changes. So both parent and child get updated. Okay. And finally redirect back to our home page, nothing but the index page. Thing should be written. I think we are done with the update logic. Now the thing pending is we have to add a link in the index page so that from the index page we can navigate to our update form. Just like we have added create button, right, to navigate to create form, same way we have to add a link for the update form. So what I will do, I will go to employee index.cs HTML file. Okay, here we have a column like actions, right? We have already defined the employee details. So here same way we are going to give a navigation for our edit. Okay, so just duplicate this. Okay, it should contain query parameter like ID. Okay, and it should be edit, right? And here we have to give the file name of our uh, browser page. Okay, so here I have to give the update. No need to give the extension name. Okay, now let's test it. Okay, here you can see the edit button, and if you inspect the HTML, we can see the generated link, see employee slash edit with the query parameter. Okay, now if I go to edit, see I am on the update form. And if you inspect it also here, and you can check the hidden field, and that contains our employee ID value. Okay, same way for employee addresses also. Okay, now let me change few fields. Okay, let me add two in the address city2 and city2. Let's update the form. Okay, here you can see my name is successfully updated. Let's check whether our child classes also updated or not, child table. For that, let's go to details. And here you can see Bangalore 2 and Lucknow 2. That means I have successfully updated the parent and child in single attempt. If you go to our console and if you check, you can observe two update queries will be generated by the uh, our EF core. Here you can see. Sorry, three total number of based on records. Okay, one employee record and two employee addresses records. Okay. So that's it about the update operation. Next, we are going to deal with the delete operation. Previously, we implemented update operation. Now we are going to implement our final operation, that is delete operation. Okay. So let me create the Razor page file for the delete operation. Okay. So inside of the employees folder, let's create a new Razor page model. Okay, this is my model. Okay. Now first thing is we are going to implement a get on getAsync method. Inside of it, we will write a logic like fetching all the data. Okay, all the data means the record we want to delete. So that one record from the employee table and collection of addresses from the address table, we will fetch and display. Just like a confirmation page where we are going to display the user which item you are going to delete. Okay, so to make it quick, let me copy the sample code from the employee details table. We have already implemented same thing, right? To view entire data of a particular employee, we have created employee details page, right? So we can copy some code from it. Okay. So first thing is let's inject the my context into the constructor. So copy the code. Okay, and import the namespace and change the constructor name. Okay. Next thing is we have to create the property to store the data that we want to bind to our UI. So I can copy the property from here like employee data. Okay. Now in the getAsync we have to get both employee and its related employee addresses, right? So that logic we have already implemented in details getAsync. So just copy the exact thing. Okay. So let's import the namespaces and include. So here what we are doing, we are going to get the query parameter like ID. That ID defines which record we are about to delete. Okay. And next we are fetching the data from the employee, including the employee addresses. So here we will get single employee record and collection of employee addresses, related employee addresses. Okay. And then assign the data to employee data. So this property we are going to use in the HTML file. So now let me create the HTML file for employee delete. Okay, create it. And we know first thing we have to define the route. For that, I can use page directive and start with slash, and I will define my route like delete. Okay, and next thing we have to define the model, right? Okay, and now I'm going to copy the HTML content from the employee details HTML, because in employee details also we are displaying the particular employee details, right? So same HTML I am going to use here. Okay, so let me go to employee details HTML file. Okay, let me copy this HTML. Okay, paste it inside of the employee details page. Okay, now here it will display user information and addresses. Now what we will do means we are going to add a delete button. Okay, on clicking the delete button, we are going to delete the item. Okay, so here what I will do, I will create one more hot body where I am going to add the delete button. Okay, so let me add the delete button here. Okay, and the type should be submit. Okay, so let me add bootstrap classes. So here we added submit, but there is no form, right? Submit button only posts for the form submit. So for that, what we will do, we are going to wrap this button around the form tags. Okay, form and whose method is, sorry, it is form. Okay, and here we have to define the method that is post. Now I can place this button inside of the tag. Okay, so inside of the form. Now whenever button clicks, form gets posted. Okay, now we have to implement the post where we are going to implement our actual logic to delete. Okay, so here what I will do, I will create a post async method. Okay, okay, here let's input the ID value which we want to delete. Okay, and let me copy this entire code, fetching the data. While deleting, we must fetch employee addresses also. Okay, and let's assign it to the where employee to delete. Now what I can do here, I'm going to use my whole DB context dot employee dot remove, and I will pass the employee to delete object. So here it contains child object also, right? Employee addresses. So it will generate the delete query for those as well. Okay. We simply call save changes async method. And finally, let me return back to my index page. Okay. Since it is save changes async. That's it. We are done with the logic behind the delete. Now we have to add a link for delete to navigate from our index page to delete page. So let's go to our index page. Just like details and edit, let's add one more anchor tag. Okay, that represents the delete operation. Okay, here we have to define the file name of our delete. So it is employee delete. Remove the extension. Okay, and save it. Now let's test it. Okay, here name it like delete, this anchor tag. Okay, here you can see the delete link, and if you click on it, we are going to navigate to our delete page. Okay, here you can see the delete page. If I click on delete, we can see our record must deleted. Okay, click on delete. The record is deleted, and if you go to network calls, here you can see three delete operations, and two for employee address and one for employee. And if you observe, employee address is deleted first because it has foreign key constraint, right? So employee address must be deleted first. Here you can see the order of delete command executed, then only employee gets deleted. Okay, so that's it. That's all about .NET 7 Razor Page CRUD operation with one-to-many relationship table structure using EF core. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel as well as liking the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then.